Art. It's humanity's way of expressing itself, of digging deep down into the bowels of our subconscious and discovering what awaits. And sometimes, it's for sculpting a Mothman statue with a big old dumper. Hello and welcome to Flyover Culture, your guided tour to pop culture in the Midwest. I'm Payton Whaley. Cryptids do a lot for us. And not just wolfmen snacking on hikers who get a little bit too nosy or the Loveland frog showing off some light wizardry.
Shadow Wizard Money Gang, we love casting spells.
They get us thinking about what could be out there that we don't quite understand or can't quite disprove. They get the gears turning. What would this look like in the cold light of day? How do they interact together? How sick would this look on a t-shirt? In doing these cryptid videos the past couple years, researching the origins of these tall tales has just been step one. The rest is seeing how fans and skeptics alike interact with these creatures, and in the process, learning about some amazing artists who are just as obsessed as we are. So today we are going to meet two artists with a heavy cryptid bent. People who have spent quite a bit of time not just celebrating folklore and cryptids, but who have basically been cataloging them for our learning pleasure. Back in 2023, when I went up to Rhinelander to check out all things Hodag, my friends turned me on to an artist who has spent quite a bit of time celebrating the wicked, weird, and wonderful parts of his home state, Wisconsin.
I'm Mike Bass. I live here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I am an author and illustrator, and I co-own this shop that we're sitting in with my wife, Natalie.
While at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, Mike fell in love with printmaking. That's how he developed his style, which I think of as kind of Hatch Choprin's cool goth uncle.
The actual cutting of lino or wood is sort of how I now sort of style the shapes and the forms that are in my artwork. So even though I'm currently a digital artist, everything starts with pencil, pen, and ink, drawing a positive image, so black lines, white paper. When I take it into Photoshop to do my work, I reverse it, and those shapes that are defined by the black line of the ink on paper sort of become the shapes that I start to overlay. It's very much an analog style of illustration in a digital process.
And this past fall, Mike released his book, Frightful Folklore of North America, which has about 100 folk stories all the way from Greenland down to Panama, each with their own full-page piece. Think Sasquatch and Chupacabra, sure, but also ones lesser known to the zeitgeist like Rougarou and Resurrection Mary.
North America, it was occupied. There is an indigenous population that was here, a tremendous indigenous population. In fact, there were well over 1,000 unique different population or groups that were in North America. It was obviously found by the Europeans, first the Vikings and the Norse, then Columbus, the Spanish, the Italians, everybody started to find it, and then they came here. And when you think about, we'll say, colonization, it's often one group coming in and colonizing another singular group. But here in North America, it was thousands. You had all of these different sort of cultures from Europe coming into the area, and then you had all of these other cultures that were already here. When you think about the ways that they saw and sort of defined fear and things that scared them, they had, in many cases, very similar stories. And so when you had these different cultures suddenly, not just residing near each other, but actually combining and colliding and smashing into each other, the stories took on a very sort of uniquely jumbled and North American voice. The task was to try to represent as many cultures as I could possibly represent and still be able to get the book under 100 stories.
Like the stories themselves, cryptid artists are all over the country, from Wisconsin down to Texas. Monica Gallagher is a writer and illustrator who's worked on comics like Assassin Roommate, Black Ghost, and a new horror title called Matron, now on Kickstarter.
My name is Monica Gallagher, and I'm an illustrator and comic book artist, and I've been doing that for a long time. I have done a number of comics over the years. The one I'm most known for is Assassin Roommate, which was for Webtoon. And my latest project, which I'm really excited about, is I get to work on a comic series about a middle-aged female serial killer in Texas.
I came across Monica's work at C2E2 in Chicago last year, where she was selling prints and zines of our favorite cryptids grouped by state. It's great art, of course, but it feels almost as much like reference material.
There's an art fair in Austin coming up that I needed to design some new prints for, and so I thought it would be fun to do the Cryptids of Texas. It was super popular and people were really into it and wanted to know more about all the cryptids, and I was like, oh crap, now I gotta go find out like where I even got the information from. So I have prints for every state, and I've started to branch out towards doing these like little like mini info booklets about each of them. So it gives you like a little something something. I've done some of Canada, some of the US protectorates like American Samoa and Puerto Rico. My husband and I just got back from Scotland, so now I'm obsessed with doing Scottish cryptids.
What even are the Scottish cryptids, or is it just like Mothman in a kilt?
I had to break it up into 5 different prints because there's so many. And they're all weird ones, so it's really fun to draw.
For people like Monica and myself, the love of cryptids starts with podcasts and Wikipedia deep dives and caked up Mothmen, but for people like Mike, it's a bit more personal.
I grew up in a haunted house, probably from about the age of 6. When I was a kid, it was just sort of an oppressive feeling. It was just kind of like a weight. When you walked up to the house, when you were in the house, you could oftentimes feel you weren't alone, and it was just sort of oppressive. And then we started hearing voices. We started seeing things move. Things fell off of shelves. Things fell off the walls, sort of things like that happening. When I got into college and I started to really find my voice and sort of my look and just my art, it sort of began in a darker sort of area. I took a class, Professor Thomas Lilly, he's no longer around, unfortunately. He was a wonderful man. Through that class, I sort of found that throughout history, people have used their art to sort of define the things that they were dealing with, the things that scared them, the things that impressed them, the things that sort of drove them. And I also found a voice in terms of storytelling, being able to talk in front of a bunch of people and having folks be interested in the stuff I wanted to say. Through that, I sort of found that I needed to talk. I needed to put like names and stories and faces and sort of definitions to the things that scared me as a kid. And so the first things I started drawing and creating were ghosts and hauntings, researching and talking to people who had similar experiences to mine. As that just evolved and sort of kept rolling, it just kind of really got me into the folklore end of things, and then that got me into cryptids, and then that got me into everything else that I kind of do.
The results.
Yes, right here.
Now, in the wide world of cryptozoology, there are some guidelines. Like, we kind of know what a hodag or a Sasquatch or a Mothman are supposed to look like, but then there are the amorphous shapes in the dark, where there's a bit more room for interpretation. I asked them both, what kind of challenges or freedom come from that?
I definitely try to put my own vision on it, but yet keeping true to the nature of the story. For instance, like the Wendigo, it's an emaciated, deer-shaped creature that walks on its hind legs and has sharp teeth. Other people describe it as, just a big white, or like a very emaciated white shape, almost like a zombie. So there are some that, it's like, you expect them to sort of look like it. Sasquatches are the same way. You expect them to look a certain way, big feet. The way I drew my Sasquatches, they're a little different. They're much more of this like hulking hump of a mound with eyes way at the top, which I think is kind of a fun way to draw them.
I prefer when there's more info, because the more specific, the more kind of believable it is, as weird as that sounds, but when they're like super, super specific. Like the one I'm working on from Scotland right now, it's a one-legged cyclops with a hand coming out of its chest. Like perfect.
You have to, when you are telling a folktale, put some of yourself into it. You obviously, with many of them, you want to stay as true to the tale as it is, but you have to use your own language, you have to use your own voice, you have to tell it your own way, because that's the definition of folklore.
It's a cool way to see kind of the history of America and how people have traveled and brought their stories with them. So, and now it seems like it's just getting fuzzier and fuzzier, because you can see like chupacabra in Maine or like something, you know, like, and Bigfoot's in every state now except for Hawaii. So it's kind of cross-pollinated all over, which is cool. So there's still some that, I mean, the states are like, this is our cryptid, you can't have it. But there's like a bunch of schools in the South that have a wampus cat as their mascot.
It also can't be understated just how passionate the communities that form around these creatures can be. I should know. I made one video on Bigfoot and it screwed up my analytics for a whole year. Like and subscribe, it helps me out. But when you make art of cryptids, people tend to take that as an invitation. A 9x12 neon sign that says, "Tell me about your encounter."
Like, people love talking about where they're from, and they love talking about folklore. And I learned that very quickly in Chicago at that convention when I had my print and people were coming up to me and saying, like, you know, my great-grandfather was mayor when the Enfield Horror was running around. Like, what? Like, so it's awesome. It's just it's a fun way to connect with people.
I can't even count anymore how many people have, you know, told me their ghost stories from childhood, or their skinwalker stories. They've seen something in the woods, or their Sasquatch stories. One of the questions I get the most is, do I believe in all of this stuff? You know, do I believe that all of these folk tales actually exist? And I have to say, I can't say I don't believe them. I have stories that I could tell you that you would be like, that never happened, that couldn't have happened, that's impossible. And I always think of the times when people have been, you know, like, the ass, what do you think, what are you talking about? And it's like, no, it happened. I'm telling you the truth. I would hope that, you know, if someone tells me a story, I would be take the same vantage point.
It's given me much more appreciation for the way that people tell stories and how inclusive it is for everybody. Like, you can have hometown pride, but you do honestly like appreciate swapping stories with other people about crazy stuff they've seen.
And those communities aren't just with fans, but with other artists as well.
It's a great community, and no one's like, hey, well, so like I said, some people have told me I'm wrong, so, but in a nice way. And because we're artists, everyone has their own style, so you can't be like, well, I drew that already, you can't draw the Fresno Nightcrawler. You know, like, no one's like that. And
speaking of communities, just think about the kind of love and attention Oscar brings to Churubusco, or the tourism Mothman gives Point Pleasant. The groundswell of art and stories around this folklore creates a kind of pride that's hard to find anywhere else. Like, are the people of Rhinelander a little less angry when they get pulled over by a cop car that has a hodag on it? Probably not, but I'm making a point.
It's folklore, it brings everyone together. Everyone can be proud of like where they come from and their hometown monsters, and it's just, and I know it's a great way for small towns especially to like get good tourist money in, to have like a Bigfoot festival. So it's just, I think it's like a win-win. Like, everyone gets to have fun stories and then like reap the rewards. So
anything any other state has, Wisconsin definitely has, if not a bit of it, almost more of it. There's lots of people that say, oh, Wisconsin is possibly one of the most haunted states in the Union. We have cryptids all over the place. We had lumber folks who made up their own cryptids, the hodag. And so I think that there's just a tremendous amount of strangeness that happens in Wisconsin. I would say we don't know as much as we think we know. Just to appreciate the wonder of the unknown, staying young and sort of light about storytelling and story reading, I guess, you know, getting tales told to you or telling tales yourself.
Mystery is so important to humanity, and not finding the answers and just like keeping an open mind about what you see. And sadly, so many tales of people seeing crazy stuff they don't tell anyone because they don't want to be called like the town idiot. And so we lose a lot of stories. And so it's great when they're passed down and we get to hear what some of the older generations saw, that they were afraid of like becoming a town kook, so they didn't say anything. Now I guess maybe everyone's the opposite, and now we just tell everybody everything we've seen.
I love art that has a story that goes along with it. I will say that almost everyone that I do, it starts out with the art. That will make a beautiful image. That will make a really, really fun image to draw, fun image to look at, fun image to have on your wall. But then the second part is I very much write sort of like I tell stories. I do feel that having explored and researched and written and illustrated so many stories about hauntings, you know, strange occurrences that have happened in Wisconsin, it's made me feel better about my childhood it's done well. I've done well by it, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Hey, thanks for checking out our little cryptid episode, even if this one's a little different. And a big thank you to Monica Gallagher. You can check out more of her work down in the description. And if you're watching this around when we post it, there is still time to see her new horror series now on Kickstarter.
And it's called The Matron, and it's going to be a 6-part series that's part Texas Chainsaw Massacre, part Scream. And I've never drawn a horror comic before, so I'm very, very excited. It's written by 2 local Texas guys, and then I get to draw it.
Links to that, of course, are below. Thanks to Mike and Natalie Bass for letting me invade Zipdang for a day. Mike's book, Frightful Folklore of North America, is available now, and he tells me he's working on another book for Watkins Publishing that should come out in late 2026. His other work is also down below. Thanks for watching, make sure you subscribe, and as always, if you're going to get eaten in the woods, at least bring a sketchbook.
When we were looking for a house, there were houses that we went into that it just didn't feel right. It kind of gave me that same sort of tingly feeling that I got from the house I grew up in. And so, you know, we got out, realtor went away, and I'm like, nope, not that one. Not that one.
Next time I go house hunting,
Yeah, sure.